Hello everybody, Mayor Tom Carnes, and we're at the War Memorial here at the Forest Memorial Park. It is a special day. We are adding some names that probably should have been on there before, but either through, who knows why, either lost or had the proper information wasn't given. But today we're going to make that right and have those names added onto it. A major part of this is our curator for the museum, Mr. Jeff Day, over here. We're still in the middle of the COVID crisis, so that everybody is being responsible and wearing masks. But we have two gentlemen here from Michigan Memorial that are assisting us. So really has got the job done. Do this. Guys, why don't you come on over here for just a minute? Just give the names, your names, just because we appreciate it. John, Mr. Moore, Mr. Plaque, okay. And we have the two name plaques that you guys are holding. Mr. Bandshell was in the Navy, and his ship went down, and he was lost for a period of time. But then afterwards, he was declared as being deceased, and so we're making sure that his name gets added. And then we have Mr. Vaughn, whose middle initial was wrong for all the years that it was on this memorial, and we're correcting that. And we're adding also 3 names from the Vietnam War to this plaque. We have to add another one on there. So there'll be more coming here in just a minute, and when we put the actual plaques on the marker here. So. Hello, everyone. My name is Tom Carnes, the mayor of the city of Lincoln Park. I'm also the president of the Lincoln Park Exchange Club. Exchange is celebrating its 95th year this year, all in the city of Lincoln Park. And if you look about yourself at the Memorial Park, you will see that there are 90 flags that the Exchange Club has put up annually for the last 7 years in honor of Memorial Day. We are here at a very special Memorial Day celebration. During the COVID-19 pandemic that we're all part of, we can't get together as a group, but still the people that are on this wall behind me need to be have a parade this year for service. So using correct social distancing rules that are in place for us now, we're going to attempt to put together something that I think that you will find, I'll just use the word memorial, and then we'll go from here. So first and foremost, we're going to start off with the national anthem, and we have the chaplain of the American Legion of Lincoln Park, Post 67, Tracy Kirkendall. So Tracy.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight all the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you, Chaplain. That's beautifully done as always. Now we have our invocation. We have Reverend Paula Miller from St. Michael's Episcopal Church and All Saints. I think I got it close.
Let us pray. Holy God, our comforter, as our nation pauses to celebrate Memorial Day, let us recall your guiding words to live our lives loving you and in love for one another. Your deepest example of love we hear in the Gospel of John. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. And so we gather today to remember those in our military who have given their lives for the freedoms we enjoy. We stand at this Veterans Memorial with a deep sense of sorrow and grief for our neighbors, our heroes we have lost over the years. Be with all who serve in our armed forces. Bless them and their families. Grant them your loving protection. Let peace prevail among all the nations, O God, and especially let your mercy rest upon our land, even as we acknowledge with thanksgiving your past goodness on this country. If it is your will, preserve the lives of the men and women in uniform as they defend our citizens. We pray as we look to you for strength, comfort, and guidance. For you alone give us hope, for the future and the peace that passes all understanding. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. We appreciate that. Oh, here, wait. Get this up here. Um, we have some honored guests that are going to be speaking today. First, we have representing the Michigan District Exchange Club as the soon-to-be president of the Michigan District, will be sworn in as the president of the entire state of Michigan in just a few short weeks. Lincoln Park she is a member of the Lincoln Park Club too, so it'll be an honor to have a president that coming from Lincoln Park. So Maureen Tobin.
Hi, everybody. I'm happy to be here today to remember our veterans, the brave men and women who have served and sacrificed so much so that the heritage of American citizenship may be mine. On this and every Memorial Day, we honor and remember our veterans, our fallen, our disabled, our active duty, the veterans that come home needing our help to restore their lives after serving our great nation. Americanism is one of the pillars of the National Exchange Club, instilling patriotism in our youth, recognizing the needs of our veterans and their families, working with Veterans Matters to house our homeless veterans, and to one day put an end to veteran homelessness. This Memorial Day, I ask that we stand together and recognize these men and women for their honor, that we hold them in high esteem and let them know that we shall never forget. As Americans, we support and stand by their side. We respect and validate the sacrifices they have given for all Americans. The Exchange Club of Lincoln Park, the Michigan District Exchange Club, and the National Exchange Clubs across the nation are assembling fields of honors like the one you see here today to show our support for America's greatest people, our veterans. Thank you.
Okay, and if you can call Tracy back up and to speak on behalf of the American Legion.
Thank you for letting me speak. The American Legion was formed in 1918 at the end of World War I. Most soldiers were still stuck in Europe waiting for transport home. They waited for months. They wanted a way to honor their lost brothers. We at the American Legion continue today to support veterans and their families, and there's no more important act than honor the fallen. These men and boys were sons, uncles, fathers, husbands, and brothers. This memorial is the proper way to remind us that they gave their lives to protect ours. We can enjoy peace in our lives because of their sacrifice, and we must never forget. You notice some people here are wearing poppies. The poppy is the symbol of the promise of the resurrection, and with the grace of God, the opportunity to see them again. Thank you.
Now, we don't have a representative of the VFW here today, but I would not put that on them. That's more on me and putting this together at the last minute. So at this time, I think we'll draw attention to the new markers that we have on the War Memorial behind me. This is a work of love for several people that are out here that we're going to hear from shortly. There was some cost associated with this, and to that end, I put out a mayor's challenge to the leaders of our community, which is still in process. But I am happy to report that the Command Officers Association, the Police Department, the Patrol Officers Association have each put in $250 towards that. The Chief of Police and the Fire Chief have both contributed to this, as well as businesses such as Lincoln Park Community Credit Union, the Steel Trap, Ray Alex Funeral Home, and we have the Assistant Principal of Christ the Good Shepherd Church, Mr. Cole, that has also contributed to there. With this project, which costs about $1,400, I'm hoping to continue to raise funds for this, which will go to the Lincoln Park Historical Society, and those funds will be used strictly for the upkeep, care, beautification of the War Memorial. There will not be any administrative costs that are associated with that. It's just going all towards the memory of the people that are up here. At this point, I'm going to call Jeff Day up, who is the curator of the Lincoln Park Historical Museum, and start in with the explanation of how this all came about. Or should we go with Aaron first? Now,
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here. I want to just mention briefly how this process began. Last summer, we were contacted by the family of Clyde Liddell, and that is what set in motion the process of getting the names added to the marker that have been long missing from the memorial. Two of the names are from the World War II era, including Clyde's, and three of the names are from the Vietnam War era. These are names that, for one reason or another, through mistakes or through oversight, simply had not been added in previous years to the War Memorial. And these are men who lost their lives during the service, and who obviously it's very important to remember them each year when we have our memorial service here. So they are now added in perpetuity, so they will be remembered along with all of the other names up here. About 129, is that right?
There is now
135. Very good, thank you. I did want to just say briefly, Clyde Liddell was a Navy seaman in the Second World War. His family lived here in Lincoln Park. He went on to the Navy right out of high school. He was 18 years old, and it was in the Battle of Okinawa in May of 1945 that the ship that he was on, the USS Bunker Hill, was bombed during the Battle of Okinawa. And he was missing. Essentially, he was missing in action, as were many other sailors from that event. And it wasn't until about fall of 1945 that he was officially declared dead by the U.S. Navy. So it was a period of about 4 or 5 months there where it wasn't known whether he was alive or not. At this time, I would like to introduce his nephew, Joe Liddell. Joe, if you'd come up here and say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Joe Liddell. I'm the nephew of Clyde, my father's brother. I want to start by thanking the Lincoln Park Historical Society and Mayor Carnes for putting this together. I feel like I should apologize for my relaxed appearance. Normally I'd be clean-shaven, wearing a suit for something like this, but unfortunately I found out about this last night, and like a lot of guys during this COVID-19 thing, I just can't seem to locate my razor. But that being said, Clyde, I feel like I know the guy, even though we obviously never met. He was serving on the Bunker Hill, was killed in the Pacific. The Bunker Hill was an aircraft carrier in support of the Battle of Okinawa. And at that point in the war, the Japanese were getting desperate, to say the least. And the use of kamikaze pilots was in full swing. On that particular day, 2 suicide planes slammed into the Bunker Hill, killing almost 600 guys, my uncle included. Clyde was originally reported as missing in action, not killed in action. Like a lot of those guys, his body was never recovered. So his name should have been on here in 1949 when this memorial was built. But because he was MIA, not KIA, there was some red tape. My grandparents, Clyde's mom and dad, tried to get it done in the 50s to no avail. I think my dad tried again in the 70s. And red tape, whatever the case may be, Clyde's name was never listed until now. But better late than never. And again, thanks to Lincoln Park and the Historical Society for making this happen. My only regret is that my dad and my grandparents aren't here to see this, but nevertheless, it got done. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe, very much. There's one other step of this process that I must mention, and that is when we started looking at putting these new names on, we went to our friends at Michigan Memorial Park. They've helped us before with some of the other projects here, and are very, not only are they reliable and they do good work, but they are willing to work with us, you know, on just about anything. So I do want to give a shout out to Kelly Dwyer, who heads up Michigan Memorial Park, and her staff, John Fenich, who did most of the installation work here. They were just phenomenally easy to work with, and we thank them very, very much. As Mayor Carnes mentioned, the plaque is new, and all of the nameplates that you see that are shiny are also very new. So we hope that you'll take a closer look at this before you leave today. Take as many photographs as you want, but we're very pleased that this came to be finally.
Very difficult because you want to shake people's hands when they're up here, and you're not really allowed to do that or should do that due to you want to keep everybody safe. Jeff Day, the curator of the Lincoln Park Historical Museum, is when you put all of this together, though, he's the guiding force behind this. He is a true fan of the veterans, or supporter of he just wants them to be treated properly, and it has more to do with his forward moving to keep this going, because in order to get me finished on a project, it takes some prodding from time to time, but Jeff has done a great job for it. So when you have an opportunity to visit the museum, please stop in and thank him for what is on here. You will notice that apart from Mr. Lydell, there's also a second name that is listed on here, Adrian M. Vaughn. Now, Mr. Vaughn was on the monument when it started in 1949, but his middle initial was always wrong. It was N, and then it should have been M. And it was a little thing to the family, but the name should be proper and should be right. So when we went through and did this, we made sure that was also something that was taken care of. That should be the right name out there when people read it and remember that he gave his life for all of us, to keep us free. Now we're going to a little bit about the Vietnam plaque. Next speaker that we have is a gentleman by the name of Aaron Bartell, and there is no person that I know alive that does more for the memory of soldiers that have been lost in the line of in service to their country. He raises funds every year to that memory. He raises funds for, I think it's Wyandotte American Legion or VFW. Wyandotte VFW by hosting his own reign, and he runs throughout Michigan, at least. I'm sure that he's run in other states, but whenever he does so, he carries his battalion flag, and each run that he does is dedicated to a soldier that was killed in service to the country. It's something that keeping in the forefront of everybody's mind. He is truly one of Lincoln Park's heroes. So, Aaron Bartell.
Thank you, Mayor Carnes. My name is Aaron Bartell. I'm from right here in Lincoln Park. Served in the Army 6 years, 2 years in Iraq. And I run my own nonprofit organization, 501c3, called Running to Honor. And we just try to keep the memory of our fallen soldiers and comrades alive. I have a story here about one of these Vietnam veterans. His name's Sergeant Leonard Rushlow. I didn't know him. I wasn't even alive when the Vietnam War was going on. My daughter was going to John Paul Catholic School at the time, and one of the teachers there, Assistant Principal Walt Coles, mentioned to me that he had a student in his class in the 1980s that had a family member that was killed in action in Vietnam, Sergeant Rushlow, and it was never listed on the memorial here, and she didn't know why. So at the time in the 80s, Mr. Cole tried to research it. He tried to see if we could get his name up here. Unfortunately, the attempt wasn't successful. When I was at this parent-teacher conference I mentioned about 5 years ago, Walt mentioned to me this story and asked me if I could do anything about this. So I'm the type of guy, when I commit to something, I see it through. I started researching Sergeant Rushlow. I talked with the curator here in Lincoln Park to see what we needed to do to get his name up here. And one of the things that we talked about was I needed to verify that Sergeant Rushlow was actually from Lincoln Park. I reached out to everybody I knew with the last name of Rushlow. They weren't related to him. They didn't know about him. I even reached out to businesses that had the name Rushlow in it, like the Rushlow horses they have down there in New Boston. They didn't know anything about him either. So I kind of made it my mission to try to get Sergeant Rushlow's name up here. And like any military mission, it's got to have an operation name, so I kind of nicknamed it Operation Rushlow. And it didn't matter to me whether it took 1 year or it took 50 years. His name was going to get up here one way or another. I haven't actively been pursuing this nonstop, but I brought it to the attention of the curator, to some of the city officials like Mayor Carnes, and there's certainly other people involved here other than myself that helped make this happen. I'm very, very thankful for their efforts. So Sergeant Rushlow, he was killed in action in Vietnam in an explosion, and it's very important that his name is listed here, because if their name's not listed, they're forgotten. What happens when all their family members pass away? No one's going to even know who they are. But now, because Sergeant Rushlow's name is here, everyone will know who he is, and they'll know about the sacrifices that he made for the freedoms for this country. Through this process of trying to research about Sergeant Rushlow, as I talked to the curator, I thought, I better do a really thorough job. There's a lot of people that just do the minimum. Let's get Sergeant Rushlow up there and call it good. But what if there's other Vietnam veterans that have been forgotten about and aren't listed here? Through my research, we're able to find that there were 2 other veterans, Thomas Bickford and Eli Nichols, who were listed as being from Lincoln Park and were killed in action in Vietnam. So we added their names to Operation Rushlow and tried to get their names up here, and I'm really thankful to see that they're up here now. So I just want to thank all the city officials, the curator, everybody who did all those little things behind the scenes to make this happen. I wasn't the sole guy. I want to thank Walt Coles from John Paul II Catholic for speaking up about something he knew wasn't right, trying to do the right thing for veterans, and we accomplished the mission today. So I just encourage everybody to remember, freedom's not free. These individuals, they're no longer living, but they're still alive, as long as we continue to say their names. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Now, back in 2011, the Lincoln Park Exchange Club did what's called a Field of Honor. It was flags that were here, and they had flags for each of the then 129 names that are up here, and a little bit of history of each of the individuals. And what I learned in that process going through is each of these young men left homes. Like we have, like when we all grew up in Lincoln Park, they left their home at one point and they did not return. They had loves, girlfriends, they had pets, moms and dads, grandparents that they left behind. But each of these 135 names that are up there now lived in Lincoln Park. And in the process of where I live, I discovered that directly behind my house was a soldier that had went into the Army and then did not return. So I throw a flag in the back of my backyard for that purpose. But that's why it's so important to remember these guys, is that they came, they answered the call of service to their country, they did what was important through us, and then they paid the ultimate sacrifice for that. So at this particular time, feel that all of these names need to be out loud and not just silent about that. So I'm going to ask President-elect Maureen Tobin of the Michigan District to come in and to assist me. And what we'll do is we will read the names of all the soldiers that are up here. And after that, there will be a ringing of the bell. So we will continue on if I don't trip her. There we go. First, when Lincoln Park was part of Ecorse Township before we became a community, there were members that lost their lives in World War I. We don't have the names of those individuals, but as a whole, it will honor them now. Next, dedicated to the men of Lincoln Park who gave their lives in World War II, that men everywhere might be free. In memoriam, Raymond Allor, Howard E. Blanks, James Bortle, Burr Brayman Jr., Guy A. Bryant, Harold K. Caldwell, Darrell S. Cole, Carl E. Cowell, William A. Cooper, Donald H. Croy, Albert J. Sismadia, William Daly, Herbert C. Davis, Albert T. Dawson, Marvin J. Drake, Dwayne Eaton, Leo J. Eberly, Adam Isagi, Harold H. Thales, Leroy Flateau, James Foodie, Robert B. Frazier, Harry L. Frazier, Harold Gould, James H. Grenshaw, Floyd G. Hansen, Richard P. Harper, Thomas Harvey, William O. Helmar, Leslie M. Hendricks, Charles M. Heinz, Charles R. Heiner, Robert Holliday, Lewis G. Horton, James House Jr., Steve Karwacki, Charles A. Kaloporis, Charles E. Kingsuler, George E. Cavell, Raymond B. Kleiber, Raymond J. Klisch, Nicholas Lavernachvich, Alexander Levy, Frank Lucas Jr., Julius R. Lucier, Donald J. McKenzie, Milo Mann, Joseph Marchant, Herman McQuay, Gerald D. McBall, James M. McGuire, Russell H. McKinney Jr., Vernon Mead, James A. Metzger, Donald L. Miller, Manuel A. Mitchell, Walter Mitchell, Clyde L. Mongriff, Howard J. Moore, William L. Morris, Thomas A. Novak, Manly L. Paris, John Pagowski, Junior Pogan, Christopher Poma, Jack Poppin, Peter Quinn, Orville Randall, Henry E. Rogers, Lewis N. Rose, Thomas G. Sears, Howard Shelters, Russell G. Sheridan, Joseph G. Shoveley, Claude E. Smith, Earl G. Smith, William A. Smith, James L. Sweeney, Freeman Trudeau, Authrian M. Vaughn, James R. Weber, Ralph E. Weber, Joseph Yana, Walter Z. Zedzowski, Clyde V. Lydell. In honored memory of the men of Lincoln Park who gave their lives in the Korean conflict, 1950 to 1953, Cecil Jordan, Thomas Karadima, Donald C. McGowan, James L. McGuffin, Edgar Liniger, Herbert A. Meredith, Ernest Rouleau, Edgar Shadrick, Robert A. Ward, Stephen A. Albitz Jr., Peter J. Buffa Jr. In honored memory of the men of Lincoln Park who gave their lives in Vietnam, James C. Durham, Gerald A. Kazakowski, James W. Powers, Richard D. Kaminsky, Ronald L. Beckett, Paul Peterson, Gary W. Klein, Kenneth E. Treadway, Henry P. Baldwin, William V. Clark, Theodore Gaveski, Richard A. Nelson, Vaughn T. O'Neill, John Foldvary, John F. Franzquala, Thomas J. Bradford, Merrill R. Meadows, Paul E. Precherline, James F. Higgins, John F. Higgins, Robert G. Quinn, Thomas W. Bickford, Eli W. Nichols, and Richard L. Rushlow. In honor of all who served in Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, never forget those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. In memory of Sergeant Craig S. Frank, Michigan National Guard. if we could have a moment of silence for all of these young men. Thank you. And now we have Even Stamper, a young man, a Lincoln Park resident, who is going to play taps. Thank you. He was notified yesterday to ask to do this, and he really came to our aid tremendously. Thank you so much. At this point, I'm going to call Carrie Hildebrandt of the Lincoln Park Presbyterian Church for our benediction.
God, of all those that have come before us, of those of us living today, and of all those of the future, as we go today carrying with us the names of those who sacrificed so much, as we go about our celebrations of Memorial Day, may we carry a spirit of generosity. May we have a spirit of courage in the face of difficulties. May we endeavor to have the compassion that this world needs. May we care for others with a sense of duty and purpose. God of all creation, go with us this day and every day, and may you instill in us a sense of service in everything we do, just as those who sacrificed everything to give us, to bring us today. Amen.
Thank you for everyone that was involved in our ceremony today. I'm sure that all the members of the council and residents would have liked to have been here today. Due to the circumstances that can't be, we had to make a little bit of a different choice. I think that when this all comes together, it's going to be quite a thing to watch on Monday. And as you are seeing this, I would hope that you would come down to the monument and take a look at the names that are here, and just remember that each of those were residents of Lincoln Park that did not come home and gave their lives so that we could live free. So with that, thank you everyone for being here, for the speakers, for putting up with my last minute planning, and I appreciate it. And so that the citizens of Lincoln Park know, everyone really came together and did this in honor of our veterans. We look forward to our parade next year and our service. And when we can get together as a group again, we will have a dedication of the plaques here that everyone can attend. So with that, I'd say God bless and everyone be safe.